Namaskar, everyone. Welcome to day 38 of our 40-day retreat. Today, the subject is healing. Let us remember that we are spiritual beings in a human experience. Not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are first spiritual beings coming into a human form, assuming this human form for a number of years and then leaving it. And throughout the process, we remain spiritual beings because we are born in a human form, or we come into a human form. That doesn't make us less as a spiritual being. It's like a garment that the soul wears for this plane. It is a plane of duality, the physical plane. So we experience pleasure and pain. It's a plane caught in time. So we experience aging. It's a plane with many forces at work. And so we experience adverse forces, forces that work against our well-being, as well as forces that support our well-being. Which means that on this journey of life on the earthly plane, we need to be careful. Because we're going to certainly meet adversity. Even aging is a physical adversity. And then, assuming a human body, it can carry limitations from genes, from the ancestors. It's affected by planets, the cosmic rays from planets. And stars. It's affected by the food substances that we eat, the water that we drink, the air that we breathe. So it's extremely important to stay in the awareness of what is happening in the physical body, in the human experience, as a spiritual being. And as we grow more aware, and I'm challenging you to grow more aware. As you grow more aware, you see more of you in the human experience. You don't only see yourself as a physical being, as we are drawn to in ignorance, but we see ourselves more as a being of light, as a spiritual being with powers of the soul. So in this scenario of disease, we have on one hand adverse forces, and then we have supportive forces from the soul. And of course, we want to stay continuously well through the whole experience. We want to maintain that state of well-being, principally because we want to achieve the soul's purpose of being on this plane, to fulfill our life purpose. That's why we want to stay healthy. Invariably, disease will come. And it will challenge us at different levels. Of course, it goes without saying that in the essence of our being there is no disease. Absolutely no disease. Of course, this is very difficult to realize. And we need support to realize this, that there is no disease within our soul. Of course, I say that to you, but I know what a great challenge it is to experience that in fullness. But we can experience it in a gradual way. And that gives us some power in the journey. So when we are challenged with disease, we need to really understand what's happening. So we need to observe ourselves at all levels. What is happening to me physically? What is happening to me emotionally? What is happening to me mentally? And what is happening with my spiritual powers? We need to observe the whole scenario in the challenge of disease. If the disease is coming from the physical, it's a physical challenge, then we need to gather the powers of our soul on the mental plane, the emotional plane, to deal with this. Because if the mind and emotional being becomes captured in the physical, the soul will think in its ignorance that it is sick, when only the body is sick. So when the soul remembers its true nature, or is more established in its inner being, in its spiritual awareness, it will not forget that. It will say, this disease is in my body. And I'm going to use my mental power, which is a part of the soul, and I'm going to use my emotional power, which is also a part of the soul, to help my body in this challenge. But the worst is when the mind and emotion of such a powerful being that the soul is are captured by the little physical body. And that's when we get illnesses, we say, oh my God, there's so much pain, I don't know what to do, I can't even think, I'm so pained, I can't do anything else. Mind and heart and emotional being are totally captured. Then what's going to happen? Disease is going to stay, and the worst is when a person says, well, this is so difficult, I don't know what to do, I'm going to die. This cannot be cured. It must be this, or it must be that. And we begin to have fear of what it can be, when we're not even sure what it is. So we can be so caught that the disease begins to control us when it's only in the physical body. So when we have diseases of the physical, we need to bring all the power of our soul to bear on this. And the powers of the soul are infinite. Now, I'll tell you a little more about that. But if the disease is in the emotional space, that we cannot forgive, or we are unkind, or we're negative, then that's a difficult place to be, because it's going to affect the body on one hand, the organs within the body. It's going to hold the soul in darkness, because there is such an emotional depression or contraction. That's going to be a very difficult one. And unless the person begins to say, I want to heal, I want to know more, I want to come out of this, the person will continue to stay there. So the person will need to want to come out of this emotional space. There must be a desire to heal, and a desire to search for more, and not to be contracted to that consciousness where the person thinks, oh, I'm going to die, or I cannot help this situation, or this is going to continue. All those labels in the mind are not good for the healing process. So that desire to want to come out of it is important. And then the most powerful force in healing is in the mind. When the mind stays strong, it is able to hold the intellect in a place where it can create a vision of healing, and it can begin to believe in that. So the mind is extremely important in the journey. It's a powerful tool in the healing process. So we need a strong, a clear, and spiritual mind. A mind open to all possibilities. And now you can see that if the challenge is in the mind, if we are holding a very strong belief of disease, and the challenge is really in the mind, that's the most difficult place to be, because then we cannot help ourselves unless some part of the mind opens up to give that strong intention of the desire to heal and to open up the mind to other possibilities. So when we are mentally challenged, that is the worst condition. And then we need a lot of support from outside. And you see people with brain disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson, and you see how difficult it is to work with them. Because the most powerful tool is challenge. And then a lot of care from the outside need to come in. So whilst our mind is still powerful, we need to use it in the healing process and engage all the other forces. Now, the way to healing is to open up to the spiritual space. If we have access to the spiritual space, that is where the most powerful forces are, because the spiritual space is a space of connection to a higher power. So there is belief in a higher power. The spiritual space is the space where the mind can now form a vision in connection with that higher power and begin to believe, yes, I can do it. So the mind has this firm conviction, giving the soul the belief and intention, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. That's most powerful. And then engaging the passion, believing in it, believing with your whole soul and being that I am going to be healed. I am going to be healed. And if you bring it in the present moment, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed. Holding that vision very strongly, it influences every cell, every organ within you. And then miracles take place from that place of soul consciousness using the mind and heart with firm belief in all possibilities. So it's important, very important, to make that spiritual connection, to keep the mind sharp, the intellect, the thinking faculty, the power to visualize, keep it intact and inspired by a higher consciousness, meaning the space of all possibilities, and engaging that in the healing process. And it's important to know when you are challenged, when to get help from the outside, because when it's difficult, you need help, and the universe provides it. Whether it's a medical doctor, traditional, whether it's a naturopath, whether it's alternative methods, look for what resonates with you. Look for support or a therapist. If it's a mind or emotional being, you may need a psychotherapist. But look for that person who has a good awareness of the whole scenario. Look for those professionals, if you can find them, who can appreciate the totality of healing. And if you can't, then use each professional for what they're worth. But the spiritual part of your being is the part of your being with the greatest power. So we begin our meditation today.